Hey, thank you, Roz, for that introduction, and thank you to the IEEE for putting on this wonderful show here, or symposium. Again, my name is Nick Mannion here, and I realize that I may have drawn the short straw in today's presentation, being the only presenter standing in between this room and what looks to be a lovely lunch here on the terrace at noon. So I do promise to you I will be brief. As Roz had mentioned, I come from Nielsen Audio, so traditionally the radio side of the measurement business, or the audio side as we refer it to internally here. The topic of my presentation will be focused largely on that. As I mentioned though, and as I will mention throughout the presentation, that does change and that starts to blend with TV and other mediums, and as we get into it, I'll be sure to call out those points here. So, we live in a time of really tremendous change and technology breakthroughs. Looking at broadcasters and broadcast technology, right? I don't need to tell anybody in the room that, as you know, this room here is really the leaders of that change. It's all my fellow presenters here. It's all of you in the room that are driving this change, largely in the audio space. But when I talk about that specifically for radio, what I'm talking about is new forms of content. No longer is it just live linear broadcasts, over-the-air FM, over-the-air AM. You have digital web streams, you have podcasts, you have different ways to create and deliver different forms of content. In addition to that, you have an expanded competitive landscape. No longer, if you're a radio station here in the market, no longer are you competing against just the radio station across town. You're competing for ears really in radio stations across the country and across the world through these web streams, through podcasts, through these varying different levels. Distribution methods, you know, I don't think anybody talked to it better than Andy just prior to me here, right? New distribution methods, right? New ways to provide your content, make it easier for your consumers, your listeners to gain access to your content. Could be internet, IP related. It could be, you know, over-the-air analog. It could be the combination of the hybrid broadcasting that was just presented. But different ways to broadcast that, right? It's a big change and a big change in our industry to make content more easily available to the users. All of this kind of culminates in different ad models then for the broadcasters to monetize that content. With these new technology changes, with these different ways to distribute content, you enable different ways to monetize that. When you talk about web streams, you could choose to do an ad replacement model that's different than your traditional over-the-air broadcast. You could roll pre-roll, post-roll, mid-roll stuff on your podcast. All different ways that are enabled by this tech to monetize that content, maybe in a slightly different way. And in order to do that, in order to monetize any content, you need to understand the audience. You need to understand who's listening, whose ears are on that stream. So obviously that's the business of Nielsen, and that's what I'm going to focus on a little bit today, and really how we tie together this evolving broadcast technology and how we evolve our measurement solutions to make sure we're meeting the needs of this changing landscape. Starting at the top of this diagram here, really, I look at the top one is a picture of our PPM and diary service. This is our core radio measurement product here. PPM is in the top 48 radio markets here, and it's our electronic measurement solution. In the markets 49 plus, we have a diary business, and I'm going to talk a little bit about diary. It doesn't sound technical, but I will get into a couple technical bits that we are doing to evolve the diary, and the diary is certainly still a thriving piece of our business for certain markets. In addition to that, what I've really focused this presentation on is some of the filling in of the other areas, right? In addition to that core measurement, the core PPM and diary solution, the panel-based approach, will be our bread and butter, right? It is the information that we trust the most. It's what we know about the consumer. It's our richest data set that we have, but it's not the only data set we have, and I'm going to fill you in on how we're gathering some additional data sets and really how we're putting it together with our core solution there to round out what I call our total audience measurement product. When I talk total audio or total audience measurement, I'm really looking at four key pillars. Obviously, most important and most relative to this room here is our technology and data section there, and really could be talked about in the first two bullets here. comprehensive measurement. And this is really using our PPM service, our core PPM service, and expanding it upon to different areas. You may have read recently that the PPM that was traditionally developed by Arbitron and used for radio measurement has now been launched for TV as well to supplement the television measurement product and gain that out-of-home nature for TV and capture bar listening, out-of-home listening, especially sports and other areas where there's a significant amount of out-of-home that was a blind spot to some of the traditional Nielsen measurement products. In addition to that, we're expanding the panel, right? We've expanded twice already and just announced a more recent 10% expansion. So as we continue to build out, as we continue to utilize this for additional details and additional measurements, we're also growing the panel size. But where we go from there is what I'm talking about today. Is the panel-based approach isn't the only approach for measurement. It's the one that we know the most about. But we do recognize that we're going to need to bring in, to keep up with some of these evolving trends, we'll need to bring in data sets from other areas and what I'll call census or near census type measurements that I will dive into the details here in a little bit. But a couple of, to round out that before I dive into the technical details, a couple other areas we're modernizing and really looking at as part of our evolution here into this audience measurement or total audience measurement is our policy and procedure modernization. Policies kind of guide our business. They're the rules that we follow to develop the metrics and the audience estimates along the way. As these evolutions and as these broadcasts change, as this technology changes, we need to make sure not only our technology keeps up, but our policies keep up. When we talk about what we refer to as TLR, or total line reporting, the ability to add a web stream perhaps into your over-the-air FM number if it's airing the same content. We're looking at improving the ability to do that and do that maybe in different day parts separate, so a flexible TLR policy. The ability to report time-shifted viewing. So if you were able to air your morning show over the air on the radio and then make that available on your website later in the day and have a want to be able to credit that back to the live broadcast, we can do that now, and that's an enhancement to our policy. It was never a technological challenge for us, but an enhancement to our policy to enable that. Last but not least, I talk about data utilization. And that's really taking all of these audience metrics and all of this ability to generate audience data and make sure we match it together into the broader Nielsen ecosystem. As you may know, Nielsen is organized in two kind of core businesses, what we call our buy side and our watch side. Obviously, watch covers listening for the radio as well, but the buy side is a bunch of consumer data that we purchase and partner with different companies to acquire. The Nielsen Marketing Cloud is the intersection of those two sides of the business, the buy and watch side. And it's really, its intent is to tie together that consumer shopping behavior along with the watch side of the business of what people listen to really better tell the story of radio, to better tell the story of TV, to show that somebody listened to an advertisement and they were more likely to buy a product in the end. So that type of ROI is really being driven off of what we call the Nielsen Marketing Cloud and our ability to tie that together. It's still relatively early days here, but this is an area we're investing in heavily and an area we will continue to evolve here. One last thing I want to mention on the data utilization is an acquisition we recently made of a company called Ryza. This is really a sales tool, and I know there's not a lot of sales tool, but it's a really unique way to incorporate the Nielsen collected data, put that on an iPad and make easy to generate sales-friendly reports at the touch of a button. A really great tool, a lot of interest from the community, the sales community particularly, to make it easier to access and more easily digest the Nielsen audience estimates. Again, this is the technical symposium here, so I want to dive a little bit more into some of the technical pieces here that we're talking about and really some of the core pillars of the measurement process here. On the left, we talk about our PPM. It's the bread and butter. Our PPM meter has been used for 10 years here in the US and even a little bit longer internationally there. We've been through two evolutions so far. We started out with what we called our PPM 14, which is really a pager style device, connect it through a home network, and actually dial a modem back to the then Arbitron back office to dump its data every night. From there, we moved to our current generation PPM, which built the cellular technology right into the meter, give it a little slicker look, and we've had that for about 8 years, and those meters can connect right on the spot anywhere that meter is. It comes a time every 5 or 6 years where you need to evolve again, and a lot of the evolution there is driven not only by panelist feedback on the current generation meter, but also by the availability of parts and technology to drive the creation and the development of products like this. So our next meter, which is in the late R&D design right now, but that will be productized, is what we call our wearable Ppm. This really takes the existing Ppm, which is still about the size of an old pager, and really miniaturizes the tech, puts it into a form factor that could really empower multiple different wear options. So we're talking Fitbit type bracelets, little dongles that might slip onto your belt buckle or onto the clip onto your pocket there. But really the key is miniaturizing that technology to enable multiple different wear options that fit with the consumer and the different behaviors of our panelists. Our goal of a meter design is to make a meter that everybody wants to wear and it fits their lifestyle. A lot of this wearable design today is being driven by some of the parts, like I mentioned, the technology breakthroughs in the industry. This is fueled a lot by the Internet of Things space, and think of that like connected devices, Amazon Echo Dot, for example. So the parts that utilize or that are built into an Amazon Echo has about the same characteristics of a PPM, right? It has a great microphone in it that can understand and intelligibly decipher, far field communication. It's got a processor that can take action on that and do something with that data, and then it's got an internet connectivity piece that can send that data somewhere. It's because of devices like this that there's an influx of all of these different components now that it's really the perfect time to generate and to create this next generation meter and be able to shrink that in size to make it fit, like I said, the lifestyle of our panelists. Again, that's some of the areas that we're talking about investing in our core measurement solution, which is the PPM. I'm going to move into it, our SDK approach, and this is one of the ways, or one of the 2 ways I'm going to talk about how we take it from there and incorporate some different data sets into that core measurement solution. SDK, which is short for Software Development Kit, is everybody has a software development kit, right? Ours is our own, but other companies have their own. But nonetheless, our SDK, and when I talk about SDK for audio measurement, this is an SDK that's provided to app creators and players. So if you have a radio station, you have either your own branded or an aggregator of radio stations player on your mobile phone, on your PC, wherever that player may live. Nielsen has a small snippet of code that will work with those players, incorporate that in, and that's going to tell us and send us a ping every time that stream is accessed. And we're going to be able to use the basic demographics and send that off for a match to get some basic demographic data back. So we'll understand an age, sex bucket, along with the stream that was accessed and all your typical time spent listening and what I'll call playhead position, stop, start, pause, fast forward. That data, I'll call near census level data because it's not census in the fact that everybody has it, only the people with the players that have the integration involved there, but a near census, but a bigger data set that can be brought into our core measurement panel and really supplement and help round out and really fill in some of that. And as we continue to evolve and there continues to be different methods or different means to access this content, some of these partnerships and some of these bigger data sets and the ability to bring them in become critically important to our measurement service, and not only stand alone by themselves, but then to be able to use and bounce them against our core panelist or core panel solution there. To really round out a measurement solution. I'm going to skip ahead to the integrations piece here and talk a little bit about the second way that we're bringing or looking at bringing bigger data sets into our core measurement solutions there. So we had mentioned SDK approach for more traditional streams and it's built into the player. In addition to that, we had heard a couple of times the connected car or the connected dash today. Recently, within the past year, we had done an acquisition of a company called GraceNote. GraceNote powers a lot of that connected car device, connected car infrastructure, and really matching up some of what's played on the air to some supplemental content. So it could be the album art, it could be the station logo, it could be other stuff. But nonetheless, they have the relationships with these car manufacturers, and they have the ability, and they're in the dashboard already. So as part of our other strategies, integrations is leveraging ways to get that connected car data and bring that back to Nielsen as well. Again, this isn't necessarily a standalone measurement service. It has its limitations, right? Which is why being able to bounce that against our core PPM measurement solution is critical in the whole process here. Some of the downfalls of that is today, in a dashboard that has the GraceNote technology in it, or even a connected dash altogether, we're heavily over-indexed into new car buyers, to perhaps a different class of person or a wealthier class of individual, that we don't always know all the details. So we don't have the perfect distribution that we want in an audience measurement service, but it is a big data set that's critically important and can be used in conjunction with our core panel or core PPM service to help fill in and round out a measurement service. Last but not least, the diary. I'd mentioned, diary is a pretty low-tech service. It's the way we used to do measurement. But in a lot of markets, it's still the right way to do measurement. And not everybody has an economy. Not every market has an economy that would support fully electronic measurement. But there are improvements we're making into the diary business. In addition to monthly reporting and rolling averages, we're investigating e-diaries. So that's the ability to utilize a mobile phone to fill out a diary instead of the old paper and pencil method. There's multiple different ways that we're exploring enhancements to that diary business, and a lot of it is to be able to help activate and help utilize some of these marketing cloud and these other tools that I had mentioned previously, and get that data into those sources there and have them better activate and use some of the data and the insights that they're drawing from their stations. Kind of the closing slide that I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail on before I open it up to a few questions here is really the goal of this whole process. The goal of our whole total audience measurement solution is to enable and measure all content formats across all platforms and devices, and regardless of output. So kind of looking across the board, right, all content formats, right? We're talking our traditional or terrestrial AM and FM radio, the streams of them, podcasts that could have been re-airs of that existing content. It could be totally new content, and additional music services. Again, across all platforms and devices, we're talking radios, which would be our traditional PPM measurement and or diary measurement, depending on the market. Computers and mobile phones, which would be more along the lines of our SDK approach. And connected devices, certainly last but not least, it's an area of a ton of excitement there. So the connected home, the Google Home, the Amazon Echo, the ability to call up a radio station and really bring radio back into the living room. It's important that we measure that, and it's important that we capture that, and that in-home radio listening, right, and having a device back on the mantle or in the living room to play that is a key area we want to be able to measure. And last but not least, we want to measure regardless of output, right? So whether you have built-in speakers, whether you're connecting through a connected speaker like a Bluetooth speaker or a connected home device, wireless headphones or wired headphones. We want to be able to measure that all, and the combination of our PPM measurement service with the acoustic watermark detection, and that coupled with our SDK measurement can help fill in and really round out that total audience measurement product. Again, 25 minutes is not a lot of time to go through a full comprehensive audience measurement strategy here, but the goal of today was really to give this room a taste of kind of where we're at today, some of the extra data and where we want to bring in and where we want to be, and really an urge and a call to somebody in the room to continue this conversation, right? again, as Roz had mentioned in the introduction, part of my role at Nielsen is to partner with the industry, to partner with the clients, to make sure that we are building the solutions that fit these evolving needs, that we can help you and partner with you to help monetize these new broadcast paths and the new content forms here. So with that said, I can wrap up my formal presentation and feel free to ask any questions either here in the room or at lunch.
We have plenty of time for questions if someone would like to approach the microphone and ask it. I'll take the time to walk to the microphone.
Hey, sounds good, Ross.
Yeah, so I noticed on your one of your slides it mentions Next Radio and
Yes.
Grace Note and all these other things that you're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
So as you bounce that, as you said, against your traditional meter counts and whatnot,
Right.
How do you weigh those things? In other words, what credibility or how much weight do you give those other near census collection?
Yeah, no, that is a great question there, Roz. And again, some of the downfalls of that, as I had mentioned, we're over-indexed into certain individuals that are doing that. So as we look to ways, so we're evolving this measurement right today. So there's no clear-cut answer that 40% of the weight goes to this and 60% of that. Our PPM panel, our core PPM panel, is always our ground truth in this process, right? So as we look at that, we know everything about that panelist. We know all of their characteristics, and we can use that to help supplement, right, what we're getting, or use that to bounce against that. When we look at a Next Radio, for example, or even a Grace Note or an in-car vehicle, we get a little bit more of a limited data set back. So where we may have on the PPM side every attribute and every characteristic, such as age, gender, sex, income, the whole works. Typically, when we're talking at these near census levels, we might only have a gender and an age bucket, maybe in demographics. So with that, we have to create, we have to boil that down to what we call our respondent level data, or synthetic respondent level data in some cases, to be able to better match that and supplement that in. So there's no straight answer as far as a percentage of the weighting to that, but it is an area we're investigating with our data science organization to better round out and do so in a responsible manner.